Hello YouTube, Amy's Bro here, and this video is going to have an announcement with it. But before that, we get to a bit of some background. The individual that you're hearing on this video right now is someone who has been involved, well not involved, well technically actually I was involved in professional wrestling for a little bit, in a way, but was a fan of professional wrestling since 1986. So, do the math, we're talking about 27 years, or thereabouts, almost 30. Think about that. So, I think I'm qualified in what I'm about to do. When I started watching professional wrestling, there was an organization called Jim Crockett Promotions and the National Wrestling Alliance. Well, then by the point I started watching, it was more or less getting ready to be WCW, you know. But you had the Four Horsemen, you had Dusty Rhodes, you had Barry Windham, you had Lex Luger, he was a very young Lex Luger back then, Terry Taylor, the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez, Rick Rude was there, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Russians, I believe, were there. Let me think. Who else? There was a bunch. There was the Wahoo McDaniel. I almost forgot that name. I think I mentioned the Dustin Rhodes. There was a lot of different wrestlers from that period. Okay. But I also watched and was a fan of the WWF at the time. You know, obviously you had Hogan, Andre, Orndorff, who else do we have? Bundy, King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd, you had, let me think. Oh yeah, the Iron Sheik, Nikita Koloff, Nikolai Volkov, I'm sorry, I got those two mixed up. That's easy enough to do. I've seen Nikita Koloff, by the way, in person. What was it? Last year. He can still sing, but he can still do the Russian national anthem, but he let himself go a little bit. Which happens. But you know, you also had Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Met his cousin, actually. He works as a bartender on a dinner cruise thing in Lake George, New York at the time. But, God, there was so many wrestlers, you know. Harley Race, who, by the time I saw Harley, he was wrestling in a WWF, and he used the belly suplex. Of course, he was also a multi-time NWA World Champion, and a lot of people seem to forget that because they knew him only as King Harley Race, you know, from the WWF. But I was a fan of professional wrestling up through the 80s, the 90s, when the new generation was starting, even into the Attitude Era, the ECW period, Ruthless Aggression a little bit. Ruthless Aggression I liked because they were what, to me, the NWA was. They were physical, and they didn't have storylines that were really stupid. Like, there was some in the Attitude Era that I thought were just god-awful. Like the one where Mark Henry did, like, well, he was dating this, quote, woman, but found out the person was a cross-dresser. And, yeah, and there was the one where Mae Young gave birth to a hand and all that crap. There was just some really stupid angles that I really didn't like. Like, realistically, I'll be honest, there's only like maybe one or two angles I legitimately can remember now. And the one everybody remembers is Austin McMahon. And then there was, you know, The Rock and Mankind. Those are like the two legitimate ones I can tell you that I remember from the Attitude Era. There may be others that I remember, but those are two that, if you said, what stood out to you from that period? There you go. However, as I got older and I removed myself from that period longer, I realized one thing. That period of wrestling doesn't do anything for me anymore. Just doesn't. I'm sorry. If that offends you Attitude Era fans, I apologize. I apologize. I really do. But for me, wrestling was the NWA, the Jim Crockett period. You know, the period when you had, you know, the new generation coming up, because you had to be able to replace like the Hogans, the Hacksaws, Harley Race, and all those guys, and they came up and they did what they could. But that was also a period where they had characters that just made no sense. I'm sorry, Leif Cassidy, Aldo Montoya, Duke Dumpster Drosy, the Goon. Yeah, right. All right. I did like the Mountie a little bit. He was kind of cool. And the Quebecers and who else? Dino Bravo was an alright wrestler. He was, I don't think he got the credit he deserved because he was they had him as like, you know, Canada's strongest man or the world's strongest man, whatever you want to call him. But they never really pushed him as hard as I think they should. You know, looking back on, I think they should have. But that was because I think WWE didn't really look at him as a true character. He was a no-frills wrestler because look at one of his finishes was, a side suplex. You know, what were you really going to do with that? I mean, yeah, you still had like athletic wrestlers like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, but Steamboat's best. Okay, actually, Steamboat left in what? I'm sorry, 87. But you know, WWF had that problem that they allowed some wrestlers to get to that point, that top level, and then some wrestlers just stayed stagnant. Ron Truth Killings said something very poignant. If you've ever seen the confrontation he had with Ricky Steamboat on a TNA event. And I didn't see this one. I watched I was watching like the early NWA TNA events. I didn't see this, I don't think, this confrontation. When he said to Steamboat, the best you were in the other organization was the Intercontinental Champion, which was a belt for second-class citizens. And you were deserving of being the world's champion, which he eventually did get to be in WCW, NWA, whatever you want to call it. Because I think they were still under the NWA banner at the time. So, but that's just a little background on where I am with professional wrestling, or where I've been. As of late, however, I've wanted to see women wrestling. I've wanted to see women wrestling being taken seriously, and a lot of people won't admit to it, but TNA and its knockout division is probably the closest we really can legitimately get to a pretty decent women's division that is nationally televised. You know, and I'm not saying if you don't like women's wrestling, there's something wrong with you, but I think people are overly critical of, you know, I do prefer the knockouts. I will say this, when I do watch TNA, I do watch the knockouts. I have a hard time watching the divas of the WWE. I just do. Fact. I think the knockouts in TNA are a little bit more athletic. I think they're prettier also, but that's another story for another day. Anyway, where is this all going, you're probably wondering. Well, I mentioned women wrestling. I am going to be starting a project which starts tomorrow night. Here's how it's going to work. Okay, I have WWE 13. What I did was I took all the male wrestlers and threw them the hell out. What I'm going to do is put what I did was put a bunch of women wrestlers from different periods of WWE, including some Attitude Eras like Luna Vachon, Deborah, China. There's going to be some wrestlers from Independence, like Shimmer, and also from Japan, which is going to be really cool. And what we're going to do is Monday, Thursday, and Friday, because those are like the 3 days for wrestling typically. I'm going to do at least one of those 3 shows. Now, I figured it out. It takes me about probably maybe an hour, hour and a half, depending on how long the matches go, to do 5 matches, because each card is like 5 matches long. Okay. What we're going to do is I'm going to do one of those shows. And then I'm going to literally have a result sheet sitting on my computer. I'm going to do like a file dedicated just to that. And I'm going to do it where I have the match, who won, with what move they won, and their excuse me, and any highlights of the matches. Usually a highlight match would be like if somebody got put through a barricade, or somebody got put through a table, or somebody got really brutal chair shot or something. Or sometimes a really interesting like chain of events, like sometimes there's reversal of a small package or inside cradle. So that might be considered part of one. But the idea is what we're going to do is I'm going to do it this way, vlog style for now, because I don't own a capture device like a Roxio or anything like that, or a Dazzle. So until I get one, this is going to be the way we do it. The plan is going to be to do that, and eventually once I get one, maybe eventually you'll hear me actually do the play-by-play of the match over it. So and that's the basic plan. If somebody has a better idea, I'm open to suggestions. But what we're doing is we're basically going to take WWE 13 and we're doing a women's movement with it. Because I enjoy women wrestling, but I want to see women that can bust their ass. And we're going to have some fun with this, I think. So that is definitely going to be a project I'm going to do. We're still going to do, actually after I record this video, I'm going to record a Let's Play video. We're still going to do that. We're still going to do Let's Check Out videos. I'm going to do those. We're also going to do, I do have an RPG game sample coming up, RPG Maker game sample coming up on Tuesday. We're going to be doing the game Mad Father. We're going to have a lot of, and the Retro Ramble is coming back. Retro Ramble, rant, whatever you want to call it, is coming back to YouTube. Also, once I start watching my animes, again on Crunchyroll, those reviews will be coming back. So, there's virtually not, if somebody says there's no content to this channel, you ain't looking hard enough. Because, look on this channel, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. I promise you. It's going to be a fun time now, kids. Just buckle in, because it's going to be a long ride, and I hope it's a long and sustained one. So, until next we meet, my friends, take care. I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.